page 212, page 213, page 214, page 215, page 216, page 217, page 218, page 219, page 220, page 221, page 222, page 223, page 224, page 225, page 226, page 227, page 228, page 229, page 230, page 231, page 232, page 233, page 234, page 235, page 236, page 237, page 238, page 239, page 240, page 241, page 243, page 244, page 245, page 246, page 247, page 248, page 249, page 250, page 251, page 252, page 253, page 254, page 255, page 256, page 257, page 258, page 259, page 260, page 261, page 262, page 263, page 264, page 265, page 266, page 267, page 268, page 269, page 270, page 271, page 272, page 273, page 274, page 275, page 276, page 277, page 278, page 279, page 280, page 281, page 282, page 283, page 284, page 285, page 286, page 287, page 288, page 289, page 290, page 291, page 292, page 293, page 294, page 295, page 296, page 297, page 298, page 299, page 300, page 301, page 302, page 303, page 304, page 305, page 306, page 307, page 308, page 308, page 309, page 310, page 311, page 312, page 313, page 314, page 315, page 316, page 317, page 318, page 319, page 320, page 321, page 322, page 323, page 324, page 325, page 326, page 327, page 328, page 329, page 330, page 331, page 332, page 333, page 334, page 335, page 336, page 337, page 338, page 339, page 340, page 341, page 342, page 343, page 344, page 345, page 346, page 347. Distinguished Senator Tolu Adebi.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, my name is Tolu Adebi, representing Ogun West. I rise to move the motion for the adoption of these voluminous votes and proceedings as recorded on Wednesday, the 15th of July, 2020. I so move.
Distinguished Senator Professor Sandiono.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Sandiono, Cross River Central. I rise in support of the motion that the votes and proceedings of Tuesday, the 15th of July be adopted. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the votes and proceedings of Wednesday, 15th day of July 2020 be approved, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The votes and proceedings of Wednesday, 15th July 2020 is hereby approved. Letter from Mr. President. Dear Distinguished Senate President, submission of the FGN 2021-2023 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework and Fiscal Strategy paper. It is with pleasure that I forward the 2021-2023 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework and Fiscal Strategy paper, MTEF FSP, for the current consideration and approval of the Distinguished Senate. Let me seize this opportunity to express my deep gratitude for the cooperation, support and commitment of the leadership and distinguished members of the Senate in our collective efforts to sustain the restoration of the January-December financial year. In line with our commitment, we have worked very hard to achieve an earlier submission of the MTEF FSP. This is to allow the National Assembly enough time to perform its important constitutional duty of reviewing the framework. I herewith forward the 2021-2023 MTEF FSP, as the 2021 budget of the federal government will be prepared based on the parameters and fiscal assumptions of the approved 2021-2023 MTF FSP. I seek the cooperation of the National Assembly for expeditious legislative action on the submission. Please accept the single Senate President the assurance of my highest consideration. Yours sincerely, Muhammadu Buhari. Letter from Mr. President. Dear Distinguished Senate President, request for confirmation of the appointment of Resident Electoral Commissioner for the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. Pursuant to paragraph 14 of Section 3 of Part 1 of the third schedule to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended, I am pleased to forward for confirmation by the Senate the appointment of Dr. Chukwuemeka Chukwu as Resident Electoral Commissioner representing Abia State in the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. The curriculum vitae of the nominee is attached herewith. While looking forward to a usual expeditious consideration, please accept, Distinguished Senate President, the assurances of my highest regards. Yours sincerely, Muhammadu Buhari. Birthday announcement. The 16th of July was the birthday of Senator Sahabiau, the Deputy Minority Whip. He's not here. On behalf of the Senate, I wish distinguished Senator Sahabiau, our friend and colleague, a happy birthday, long life, prosperity, and many more years of service to our fatherland. The 17th of July was also the birthday of Senator Patrick Akinye-Lure, Oliver One. On behalf of the Senate, I wish our colleague, Senator Akinye-Lure, a very happy birthday, long life, prosperity, and many more years of service to our fatherland. Distinguished colleagues, the Senate has a new clerk, an acting clerk, and he is Barrister Ibrahim Dauda El-Ladan, who has been appointed as the acting clerk of the Senate on Friday, the 17th day of July, 2020. Mr. Clerk, you are welcome. We wish you a very successful and peaceful tenure. Congratulations. Petitions. Petition, Senator Solomon Adiola Olamileko.
Thank you, Mr. President. Adiola Solomon Olamileko, representing Lagos West Senatorial District of Lagos State. Mr. President, I have a petition from my constituents against the Honorable Minister of Labor and Employment for the illegal and unconstitutional suspension of the NHIS management staff, in which this constituent of mine is a member, and no judicial remedy has been sought. With the kind permission of Mr. President, may I lay the petition.
Is your constituent seeking any judicial remedy? You may lay the petition. Thank you. The petition is hereby referred to the Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges, and Public Petitions to report back within 2 weeks. Any more petitions? Leader of the Senate.
Point of order.
Point of order, Senator Michael Naji.
My name is Senator Michael Naji from my boy South. I come under Rule 42 and 52. If I'm permitted, can I read?
You may read.
Sorry. The matter for discussion shall, if possible, be referred to the President of the Senate, before commencement of the day's sitting, and the President of the Senate shall refuse to allow the claim unless he is satisfied that the matter is definite and urgent. 2. If the claim is allowed by the President of the Senate and the leave of the Senate is given by at least 1/5 of all the senators, the matter shall stand over till the next legislative day. Not more than one such motion may be made at the same sitting. 52. Dispensing with notice. Notice shall not be dispensed with in the case of a motion or in respect of any other proceeding for which notice is required except with the consent of the President of the Senate and the general assent of the senators. Mr. President, I have a motion before me here, which is communal clash between Ekoleda and Urukbam Ebony boundary communities in Ebonyi State and Cross River State. The Senate knows.
No. The Senate cannot not now. You need the permission of the senators here first before the Senate will not. Distinguished colleagues, we have listened to our distinguished colleague, friend and brother, Senator Michael Nachi. He seeks the Senate to allow him present his motion now. So he has come under orders 42 and 52. Those in favor of the motion that will allow him to present his motion, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate can now not.
Thank you, Mr. President. The motion is about communal clash between Ekoleda and Urukbam Ebony boundary communities in Ebonyi State and Cross River State. The Senate notes that the community of Ere of Cross River State and community of Eda of Ebonyi State have lived together peacefully for decades. Further notes that the Nigerian Institute of Oil Palm Research, NIFO, has a farm settlement in which the landmass cuts across the boundaries of these two communities in Ebonyi State and Cross River State. Aware that the Nigerian Institute of Oil Palm Research, NIFO, has long abandoned the farm settlement without clear demarcation as to which parcel of land belongs to a particular community through state. Aware also that the landlords through neighboring communities, Ere, Ekole, and Okoneo Hafia in Abia State, in 2001 entered into a peace accord communally to be farming and harvesting the oil palm, pending when the National Boundary Commission will demarcate the boundary between the states. Note that till today, nothing has been done by the National Boundary Commission in respect of demarcating the boundaries, which has resulted to a conflict between the states, particularly between Ebonyi and Cross River States. I learned that this accord, which was entered in 2001 at Amambala Village Square, lasted until the sale of part of the land by Ebonyi Village without the consent of the other landlord villages. Concerned that this delay action has resulted in frequent clashes between the two communities, Ere and Ekoleda, and spilled over to Ebonyi Village in Cross River, and as a result, everything has gone viral, almost getting out of hand. Saddened that on 30th June 2020, gunmen from Baisa local government area of Cross River attacked some persons at the palm plantation located at the boundary between Ekoleda in Afikpo South local government area, killed 2 persons and adopted 5 persons, of which their whereabouts till today is unknown. Concerned that if nothing is done urgently, the resultant effect might lead to more loss of life and properties. Accordingly resolved to direct the National Boundary Commission to wade into the matter immediately to resolve the conflict on sustainable basis through appropriate boundary delineation. 2, mandate the Senate Committee on States and Local Governments to investigate and unravel the root causes of the incessant clashes, killings, and destruction of properties between the two states and report back within 2 weeks to the Senate. I therefore move.
Any seconder? Senator Sandy Ono. Have you seconded?
Yes, Mr. President. And if you permit me,
You can make your contribution if you wish.
commend my colleague, distinguished Senator Nachi, for his thoughtfulness on raising this very critical matter before the Senate. Mr. President, Ebonyi and Cross River State share a common boundary in different points. Unfortunately for the people who are drawn together by many reasons, economic, social, and even political, we have witnessed in recent times increasing crisis, especially during the farming season, between these two brothers. We have had intermittent and sometimes even internecine crisis between the Adadama people, for instance, and their brothers on the Ebonyi side. The same happens in Obubra local government and their brothers on the Ebonyi side. What is even more disturbing is that it also occurs in the south between the Biasa people and the Ebonyi people. And sometimes if you do a little anthropological study, you'll find that the same ethnic group inhabits places astride these borders. When this crisis occurs, you have a lot of consequences in loss of men and women and children, in loss of crops. And then the fear that it injects in people, you know, livelihoods are distorted and scattered and dislocated, and it's just not nice at all for proper living. I therefore support this motion and would really like that government does something very practical on both sides between the Ebonyi and the Cross River state governments, and even for the federal government to intervene so as to create a situation where the boundaries are properly delineated and the people can return to the commonalities they shared before. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Gishambas.
Thank you, Mr. President. Gershon Bassi, Cross River South. Mr. President, the area mentioned here, Ere, is in Biase local government, which is in my constituency. In the 8th Assembly, I had brought a motion talking about the issues of boundary delineation and talking about the fact that a lot of the communal issues that we have are due to the lack of clear boundary issues. And I had urged that the Boundary Commission should be up and alive to its responsibility. It should be more proactive rather than reactive. A situation where people are living in peace and harmony, but suddenly these things erupt because there is no clear delineation of these boundaries is all over Nigeria. And we are losing lives and property and so much because the Boundary Commission has been sleeping on its responsibility. I therefore want to urge that the Boundary Commission immediately swings into action to avert a lot of these communal clashes in our society and in our country. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, let's go to the prayers, please. Direct the National Boundary Commission to wade into the matter immediately to resolve the conflict on a sustainable basis through appropriate boundary delineation. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against any the ayes have it. Prayer 2, mandate the Senate Committee on States and Local Governments to investigate and unravel the root causes of the incessant clashes, killings, and destruction of properties between the two states and report by within 2 weeks. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against any the ayes have it. Thank you very much. Senator Ndumi.
Thank you, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, as discussed earlier, I'm still coming under the same order, 42-1.
You may read.
Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, says that the matter for discussion shall, if possible, be referred to the President of the Senate before commencement of the day's sitting, and the President of the Senate shall refuse to allow the claim unless he is satisfied that the matter is definite and urgent. And 2, if the claim is allowed by the President of the Senate and the leave of the Senate is given by at least 1/5 of all the senators, the matter shall stand over till the next legislative day. No more than 1. But we have agreed, and Mr. President, that we will take the motion immediately after. So
That one, you don't have to worry about that. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion moved by Senator Ndume that we allow him to come up with his motion now, under orders 42 and 52, say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. You may move your motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. The motion is of urgent national importance and is on the rising number of casualties among the Nigerian Armed Forces, Nigerian Army, and other security agencies recently. The Senate notes with concern the various reports of casualties among the Nigerian Army and other security agencies. The Senate further notes that just recently, 24 soldiers were ambushed and killed along Damboa Maiduguri Road in Borno State. 19 were wounded and 9 were declared missing in action. The Senate is disturbed that in Katsina again, about 20 soldiers were also ambushed and killed, while several others were wounded. The number of civilian casualties is not known. This Senate appreciates the sacrifice of our armed forces in the fight against insurgency, banditry, and protection of territorial integrity of Nigeria and several other security assignments given to them. The Senate is concerned that if the trend continues, it will have serious implications on the fight against insurgency, banditry, and other forms of criminality in the country. The Senate notes that recently it has been alleged that over 236 soldiers voluntarily resigned their engagement or appointment with the Nigerian Army. Accordingly, resolves 1, to observe a minute's silence in honor of the fallen heroes, and 2, urge the federal government to urgently intensify the provision of modern equipment to enhance the operational capabilities of our armed forces, and 3, mandate the joint committees of Army, Air Force, Navy, National Security, and Nigerian Police to receive briefings on the state of affairs of the services in this regard. Mr. President, before I conclude, the security situation followed by humanitarian crisis in these areas is of great concern. And therefore, the Senate should not relent in standing up as it does to make sure that these issues are adequately and urgently addressed. I so move, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues. Thank you.
Senator Adijan.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. In seconding this motion, which is very critical and important, I remain Senator I.D. Gyang of Plateau North. Mr. President, this motion is very disturbing as it brings out the very unsavory and gory details on disturbing developments from the front lines by soldiers fighting insurgency and banditry across states of the nation, particularly in the north. Mr. President, the reports of repeated loss of lives of soldiers and desertions is the order of the day. And the latest development that is novel and unprecedented is the resignation of over 200 soldiers. This shows the level of disaffection and disenchantment in the front lines, and to that extent calls for an urgent scrutiny by the Senate of not only the strategic, the tactical and operational details of operations by the armed forces, and also the fact that the prayers of the motion, I want to call for an amendment to include the Committee on Defense among the committees that are going to look into this matter. I therefore support this very important motion and the prayers, and to call for the amendment so that we include the Committee on Defense.
Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues,
Senator Sumatode, social distancing, please.
that has been raised up in this distinguished chamber is so central to the survival of our people that this distinguished Senate will not shy away from bringing it on the front burner every time. This Senate will not keep quiet of the importance of this issue. And whenever challenges of the nature that have occurred, as narrated by Senator Alin Dume, we should come out very clearly to show our disgust and at the same time commend those operatives of our security forces who laid their lives so that we can survive and be free. Mr. President, we are quite aware and we all know that this Senate has done on so many occasions brought this issue of security of lives and property in this country on the floor of this Senate at various interactions that we have arranged with security forces and security institutions. And at every point when any amount of engagement is done between the leadership of the National Assembly and particularly the leadership of this Senate with the President of the Federal Republic. We have gone ahead over the years to establish so many committees whose reports we have endorsed in this chamber and submitted to the executive for action. I am quite aware over the years, a lot of these reports have been there and they have been lying, sometimes unimplemented. And this has been the bane of a lot of the work that has been done in the security sector. I do support the position that our committees on defense and security-related committees should, as a matter of urgency, meet to look in the latest effort that we have done. After we did the presentation and established all the resolutions that we have made in this chamber, I went ahead and distributed copies of the report of the Joint Committee of all the security-related committees, of which I was honored as chairman, and I submitted copies of the report, apart from the normal channel that we submit our resolution through the SGF. I submitted copies of this report to the National Security Advisor, to the Minister of the Interior, the Minister of Defense. I even submitted a copy to the Chief of Staff, to the President, so that they are aware of some of the work that we have done. I do believe, Mr. President, that we should not relent. We should continue. The issue that now faces us is that the readiness of our armed forces to really confront these challenges is now under a lot of pressure. And this pressure is reflected in the amount and the number of people that we have been losing due to ambushes by terrorists and bandits. This particular issue needs to be tackled. It means that our security forces will have to change their attack. They have to reorganize their deployment. They have to employ new tactics in this fight. But I think the meeting that is being called of our committees in security and defense sector, we should meet again and review the situation that has arisen as a result of this motion and see what further action we need to take. But I think going forward, we should not relent. We should continue to lend our voice to the threats of security in this country and really work assiduously with the executive arm of government to ensure that we bring succor to our people and make sure that the lives of our people are secure. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues. I rise to support my distinguished friend, Nominee, for a very good motion. The motion is good in the sense that anything that concerns security or members of the armed forces, paramilitary, or even the persons, the villagers who have been killed, I think it's very important. And we cannot sit down and watch how things are going without talking. If you look at the situation here, it will appear as if maybe, is it that maybe the other people who are killing our army are having more sophisticated equipment than what we have? That's question number one. Question number two, what is creating this kind of problem? Sometimes what I heard was this, because I had a discussion with one of the military members. They said that while they are fighting sometimes, their rifles or the double barrel or whatever it is, AK-47, will get hooked. And then they will have to wait and then start, repairing it before they go back again and start fighting. So it shows that some of these equipments are old enough and they have to be replaced. And also in a situation whereby the sophistication in terms of those equipments as compared to the bandits, I think it's another thing that we have to look at. Our own should be more sophisticated than the bandits and all the insurgents. Otherwise, there is no way they can be able to face them. And then also, we would also have to look at the issue of the villages that are being displaced. Like I told you, I think last week, when the bombardment was done, these people decided to retaliate. Of course, the military did very well by dislodging these people. But unfortunately, what happened was that by the time the military finished the bombardment, there was no soldiers, I think. An arrangement should have been done in such a way that there was total coordination so that as they were moving, with the bombardment, then the military also on the ground is coming in. And if they are doing that, then of course they would be able to protect the villages and then protect the villages themselves. But what is happening is that these people just decided to go back and take over all the towns. I think about 13 towns were dislodged, and most of these people went back to Isa
which is the local government headquarters. And after staying there, some of them are in the, either in secondary school or in primary schools. So I think there must be a coordinated program whereby some of these things can be averted. So that if you are bombarded, the military should be behind, and then of course the police should come to stay and then restore law and order within the place. And I think if we can do that, that will be very good. So I support this motion wholeheartedly, and I believe that this is a very good motion that everybody should support. I so support.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. Let me start on a note of condolence to the members of the Armed Forces of Nigeria and the families of those soldiers who were killed in the recent attacks, and the families of the civilians who also lost their lives. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, there's no better time to discuss this matter than the time when you are sitting as the president of this Senate. Mr. President will recall that in the 8th Senate, we organized a workshop in which we dwelt on the issue of insecurity in Nigeria for many days. And he reported back, we took a number of resolutions and submitted to the government. At the beginning of insurgency in Zamfara State, we also sent a committee led by your good self to Zamfara. And we came back and gave a very scary report. We also had a number of resolutions which we sent to the executive. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, every soldier in Nigeria represents a part of us because it's indeed a national asset. And the loss of every soldier in Nigeria is the loss of a major asset because we spend a lot of money training them. So it is with the inhabitants of Nigeria. We've lost over 300,000 people since the beginning of this insurgency. And for you to understand the enormity of this problem, you have to recall, and of course know, that some sovereign nations, especially the Caribbeans, is about the same number, about 300,000 people. So that means we've lost about a nation of nations since this started. I therefore want to appeal that as a nation, there's nothing that should be more important to us today than the security of lives and properties of Nigerians, because that's essentially the primary purpose of government. Our soldiers have been doing their best, but in the words of Mr. President, those best seems not to be enough, and we need to do more. So whatever this parliament needs to do to encourage the armed forces of Nigeria and the government of Nigeria to contain this insurgency, we need to do that as a national emergency. If it means putting more personnel or more funds to ensure that we defeat the insurgency, we exactly need to do that. So, Mr. President, I support this motion, and I plead that we do not take things for granted any longer in Nigeria. Because it's gotten the point, I'm sure you're aware, that last week they said some soldiers deserted the army. When it gets to the point where soldiers who are trained to fight and possibly die decide to leave their command, then we'll have a problem. And I think this is time for us to be more decisive in dealing with this situation. I therefore support this motion, and I pray that we take all the prayers.
We go to the prayers of the motion. Accordingly, results observe a minute silence in honor of the fallen heroes. Those in favor of prayer 1 say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Prayer 2 urge the federal government to urgently intensify the provision of modern equipment to enhance the operational capabilities of our armed forces. Those in favor of prayer 2 say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Prayer 3, mandate the joint committees of Army, Air Force, Navy, National Security, and Nigeria Police to receive briefing on the state of affairs of the services in this regard. Somebody wanted to amend. You said defense. Okay, go ahead.
Distinguished colleagues, I move that the prayer be amended to include the Committee on Defense as the lead committee. I so move.
I need a seconder. Senator Abraham Gover.
Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues, I second the motion heavily moved by distinguished Senator Gang.
Can we also add Minister of Interior? because I think Minister of Interior is also relevant here. Okay, somebody should move for the additional this thing. Okay, Senator Christopher Stephen.
Mr. President of the Senate, distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Christopher Stephen Ekpenyang, representing the good people of Akwa Ibom State Northwest in Akwa Ibom. I rise to support the move for the amendment of the motion for the inclusion of the Committee on Interior to be part and parcel of these of the committees of the prayers. I so as second.
Yes, I'll move. No, sorry. I will take all of them. No, he's making additional amendment to. I should have taken the earlier amendment, but it's okay. I need a seconder so that we take the entire prayer as amended by both Senators Adigyang. Okay. Distinguished Senator Ekon King.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Senator Akoni Yanyi, Akwa Ibom South Senatorial District. I rise to second all the amendments and the addition done to the prayers. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of prayer 3 as amended by Senator Eddie Gyang and Senator Stephen Ekpeyon say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Thank you. Okay, Senator Francis Adenigba.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. The additional prayer is so simple that the present crops of service chiefs should step aside for new ideas to come in so as to energize our security system.
Any seconder? Senator Betty Apiafi.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Betty Apiafi. I represent Rivers West Senatorial District. Mr. President, I rise to second the motion as ably moved that the service chiefs step aside for new people to come in. I so second.
Those in favor of the additional prayer by Senator Francis Father Onsisai. Those against any? Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. I think the spirit of this motion, the spirit of this motion is that our armed forces are trying very hard. Just like the President said, the good is still not enough, but we need to continue to encourage them. We need to continue to provide for them. We need to continue to provide for them. They lay their lives on behalf of all of us. And of course, it's very sad that some of them are deserting, alleged to have deserted Dua Front. We need to get to the bottom of this. Our joint committee should be able to find out the facts about this allegation of over 200 deserting Dua Front. And of course, those that are dead will observe a minute silence, but let me also convey our condolences to our armed forces and the families of those that have lost their loved ones. Let's go for a minute silence. May the souls of our fallen heroes rest in perfect peace. Amen. Point of order, Senator Michael Opemi-Bamidele.
Thank you, Mr. President. Michael Opemi-Bamidele. I represent Ekiti Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my point of order is Order 42, matter of urgent public importance. And again, Mr. President, I'm also coming under Order 52. And rather than ask for your permission to read, Mr. President, I would rather be asking for your permission to invite you and my distinguished colleague to take legislative notice of these two important orders. Same provisions having been read over and again by my distinguished colleague who spoke earlier. And Mr. President, it has to do with the expectation of Nigerians and the excitement that has been generated by the job creation initiative of the executive arm of government to create 1,000 jobs per local government, and the seeming misunderstanding of the position of this distinguished Senate and of the National Assembly with respect to this issue. I feel very strongly that there is a need to briefly but decisively address this issue with an air of finality so that our position is clear on this issue. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, because it has come under orders 42 and 52, I will have to put the question. You have my endorsement, of course, but you need the endorsement of at least 1/5 of the senators present. Those in favor of his motion that will allow him to present his motion, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Present your motion.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I move that the Senate notes the statement credited to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, President Muhammad Buhari, GCFR, through his Senior Special Assistant on Media, Mr. Shehu Garba, that the Senate appreciates the position of Mr. President as it relates to the position of the law concerning the oversight authority of the Senate and of the National Assembly. That the Senate hereby reiterates its support for the job creation initiative of Mr. President, aimed at creating additional 774,000 temporary jobs for Nigerians. That the Senate will go ahead, or the Senate notes and appreciate the need to go ahead to cooperate with the executive arm of government under Mr. President's watch to ensure the full and smooth implementation of the program as provided for, both in the revised appropriation law passed by the National Assembly with respect to the said program, as well as the National Directorate of Employment Establishment Act. That while recognizing the supervisory role of the Ministry of Labor and Employment, the Senate notes that the need for it to, in its oversight and further legislative action with respect to this program, the need to hold the NDE responsible both for the implementation of the program as well as rendering of account for monies appropriated for the program by the National Assembly. My prayers. Mr. President, distinguished colleague, that the Senate accordingly resolves, 1, to commend the President Commander-in-Chief for placing premium on harmonious and cordial relationship between the executive and legislative arms of government by directing functionaries of the executive arm of government from doing anything or making utterances capable of jeopardizing
the harmonious relationships between the executive and legislative arm. 2, that realizing that the Revised Appropriation Act is a law binding on all arms of government, the appropriation of a sum of 52 billion naira for the 774,000 public works workforce is vested in the National Directorate of Employment and therefore must be implemented accordingly, again, while acknowledging the supervisory role of the Ministry of Labor and Employment. 3, that the Senate will exercise its oversight function on the implementation of the program by the NDE. I'm sorry, Mr. President. 3, that the Senate will execute its oversight functions on the implementation by the NDE of the 774,000 public works workforce in line with the Appropriation Act, the Constitution, and other enabling laws. I so move, Mr. President.
Senator Surajuddin Ajibola.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Dr. Surajuddin Ajibola Bashiru. I represent Osun Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I stand to second this very important motion of national urgency. And if I may permit, if I'm permitted by Mr. President, I can just elucidate 1 or 2 points, very important because of its legal and constitutional importance. Mr. President, the essence of the motion is to actually deepen our understanding of appropriation process, implementation process, and oversight process of our government. When we talk of appropriation is not just a document, it's a law that has a special force by enabling provision in the Constitution as a product of a money bill. So what is appropriated is not just the money. The mode of implementation and implementing authority is part of the content of an appropriation. So when it is not just enough to say 52 billion had been given under a particular heading, the appropriation will specify the implementing authority and also the key performance index from that particular exercise. So the essence, therefore, is that there's a distinction between a statutory authority created either as a corporate, as a body, and a mere executive of a department. A ministry is a creation of Mr. President, and that is why there is, except for the Office of Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, there is no specific other offices so stated in the Constitution. But in the case of statutory body are created to have a life of their own in terms of perpetual succession and an entity that can sue and be sued on their own. In the case of NDE, is made pursuant to an act which created it by Section 1. And that Section 1 also go further in Section 3 to create a management board for that NDE, even though the minister in charge of labor, employment, and productivity is made the chairman, there are 13 other statutory members of that board. It means that if the NDE is meant to just be a department or an appendage of Ministry of Labor and Productivity, there will not be a mandatory provision of a management board that will supervise the activity of that entity. So it should not be seen to say that it's just a mere department created at the whims and caprices of Minister for Employment and Productivity. Then secondly, the National Assembly and even the executive coming up with proposition, putting the budget under the NDE, if I wanted it to just be at the whims of the Minister of Labor and Productivity, would have just put it simply in the Ministry of Labor and Productivity. But by putting it in the NDE, it means that the law, and by virtue of that, the oversight function will dictate that in supervising and implementing and oversighting
that particular activity, we should be looking towards the National Directorate of Employment as the agency that will give us the key performance index and deliver to us. So it is not a question of anybody making tough protection or trying to drag work with some other people, but we must be able to understand that all of us here are sworn to uphold the Constitution. The Constitution allows us to make law and appropriate to specific agencies of government, which we have done, and we must sing and defend that to have been done. So in this regard, I have no hesitation in seconding that motion, particularly to also commend Mr. President for seeing to the fact that the way to development of our democracy, to delivering on the welfare and security of our people, is to have an harmonious relationship that is not bedeviled by any cantankerous behavior on the part of any individual, be it in the executive or the legislature. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, distinguished colleagues.
Senator Godia.
Mr. President, my very distinguished colleagues, I am Senator Akwachiki Godia representing Nasarawa North Senatorial District. Mr. President, my very distinguished colleagues, I want to commend the mover of the motion for bringing such a motion at this timely time. But before I make my contribution, I would like to draw the attention of this Senate to Section 81, subsection 1 and 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that says the President must lay before the two houses of the National Assembly before any financial year estimates, heads of expenditure and revenue generation, what he intends to do in any financial year. And today, the heads of expenditure of what we are discussing, the special public work, the head of expenditure is under the National Director of Employment in line to Section 81, subsection 1 and 2 of the 2020 Revisit Appropriation Act. Mr. President, my very distinguished colleagues, let me also draw the attention of this House to Section 14, subsection B, that says the security and welfare of the citizens of this country that we are representing is the primary assignment of this assembly. And I want to commend the Mr. President that bring the estimate that we should approve 520 billion under the heads aligned to Section 81, subsection 1, to cushion the effects of COVID-19. 52 billion, yes. To cushion the effects of COVID-19 that will help the unemployed and our own people in the entire country. And we supported that, we appropriated because we feel the welfare of our own people is a primary assignment of why we are here today, why we are supporting him there in total. Let me also draw the attention of this Senate to Section 4, subsection 2, that empower this National Assembly to make laws for good governance, peace, and order of this country. It is in line of this Section 4, subsection 2 of the Constitution that today we have an act establishing Ministry for Labor and Employment. And today we also have an act establishing National Director of Employment. National Director of Employment by law, Directorate. By the act establishing NDE in Section 2, subsection A and B, there's a department that is responsible for all this mass unemployment to our own people. I was reading in social media 3 days ago where a minister is saying that the special committee in various states should ignore
Distinguished Chairman, please just round up, please. Please.
This program should go in line with the act establishing NDE, because that is the rightful MDA that's supposed to plan and execute this special public work. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I want to thank you for the opportunity given to me, and I should support the motion for the proper implementation of the special public work under NDE. Thank you.
Senator Bolanala.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues. I think my intervention will relate clearly to the provision of our Constitution. Mr. President, let me remind this chamber that the basis of the...
Please, social distancing.
We have, and the rules of engagement given to us by those who elected us into office is that upon being elected, we will come here before the assumption of office to re-emphasize to them that individually and collectively we will uphold, protect, and defend the Constitution that they have made and given to us, and the law. So, Mr. President, I am greatly worried about the arguments surrounding this matter. First, if I may ask, if in compliance with the provision of the Constitution, the President deemed it fit to present before this National Assembly certain amount under a specific agency established by law to perform a function. And all of a sudden, we have somebody who has neither legal nor constitutional authority. All he merely has is supervisory authority over that establishment, coming to say, no, I will take it myself and do it. And then we hold back. We will riotously be going against the oath of office we have taken. And I think that is not good for the institution of the Senate. I commend Mr. President for specifically asking appointees of government to understand that he will not tolerate certain conducts that seems to rubbish the institution of the National Assembly. That is very commendable. But, Mr. President, additional question that can be asked, and which is valid, is that can a minister who himself has sworn to uphold, protect, and defend the Constitution and the law be allowed to work directly against the laws of this country? It is in anticipation of this situation that the Legislative Privileges Act gave us power to decisively deal with those kind of conducts, which in some cases may even end up in going to jail. And that is the provision, and nobody can change this provision. In specific, sir, I would like to draw the attention of Nigerians to go and look at Section 11 in particular of the Legislative Privileges Act as it exists as today. Let me say that this argument is unfortunate. It ought not to have reached this place. My only regret, Mr. President, is that certain people lacking in conduct and character have leverage over certain political leanings to occupy public office and display such level of lack of character and content in the discharge of their duties. And I think we have a responsibility to stop that. And I urge my colleagues to do whatever is humanly possible to assist Mr. President to ensure that this kind of characters are not allowed to continue to riot to the provision of our Constitution and the law. And I think this should be the position of the Senate. Let me commend my brother and friend, Opeyemi, for bringing this matter before this Senate, and commend all those who contributed along this line. And to say, Mr. President, I equally find it expedient to commend you for at least standing on the side of the provision of the law by making it public that National Directorate of Employment, under whose department that money was allocated, should be the one to do the program so that it can adequately be oversighted by the National Assembly. Once again, I thank you very much for giving...
Distinguished colleagues, will go to the prayers, please. The Senate accordingly resolves, 1, to commend the President Commander-in-Chief for placing premium on harmonious and cordial relationship between the executive and the legislative arms of government by directing functionaries of the executive arm from doing anything or making utterances capable of jeopardizing the harmonious relationship between the executive and the legislative arms of government. Those in favor of this prayer, say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Prayer 2, that realizing that the revised Appropriation Act is a law binding on all arms of government, the appropriation of the sum of 52 billion naira for the 774,000 public works is vested in the NDE and therefore must be implemented accordingly, while acknowledging the supervisory role of the Ministry of Labor, Employment and Productivity. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. And prayer 3, that the Senate will execute its oversight function on the implementation by the NDE of the 774,000 public works workforce in line with the Appropriation Act, the Constitution, and the other enabling laws. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. Let me join our colleagues who intervened here to commend Mr. President as well for stating very categorically that he will not tolerate any functionary from the executive side to try to show disregard or disrespect to the National Assembly. This harmonious relationship has been quite productive. It has made the executive to function better because we provide the ammunitions for the executive to work with. We are equally on the same page on this. But let me also mention here that we will always stand on the side of the law. What the law says is what we stand by, and this is to say that this particular issue, this National Assembly still stands on the fact and the law that NDE is entirely responsible for the implementation of this program. The ministry has supervisory role, and the National Assembly has the oversight function. We'll ensure that we oversight this program very closely so that Nigerians benefit. We are indeed for this program. We want our constituents to benefit from this program, which is a very laudable and noble program introduced by the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. Thank you very much. Additional prayer. Who is additional prayer? Oh, okay. Is someone going to say it on his behalf? Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the first business of the day is the presentation of our bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Anayo Roches Okorocha on the Compulsory Free Universal Primary Education Act, Amendment Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk, are you ready? Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Compulsory Pre-Universal Education Act Amendment Bill 2020, SB.
Yeah, Mike, have you finished? Okay. Compulsory Free Universal Education Act Amendment Bill 2020, SB 473, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the second business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Ibrahim Yahya Oloriagbe on the Medical and Dental Practitioners Act 1988, Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Medical and Dental Practitioners Act 1988, Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2020, SB 480, first reading.
Medical and Dental Practitioners Act 1988, Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2020, SB 480, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the third business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Tolulope Akinremi Odebi on the National Institute for Food Technology and Entrepreneur Management, Establishment, etc. Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, National Institute of Food Technology and Entrepreneur Management Establishment Act, ETC Bill 2020, SB 481, first reading.
National Institute of Food Technology and Entrepreneur Management Establishment, ATC Bill 2020, SB 481, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fourth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Betty Apiafi on the Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, National Deposit Corporation Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2020, SB 482, first reading.
Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2020, SB 482, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fifth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Solomon Olamiyokan Adiola on the Nigerian French language village Badagry Establishment, etc. Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, National French Language Village Badagry Establishment, etc. Bill 2020, SB 483, first reading.
Nigeria French Language Village Badagry Establishment, etc. Bill 2020, SB 483, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the sixth business of the day is the presentation of the reports of the Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development in respect of 1, urgent need to revive the palm oil industry, 2, National Rice Development Council Bill 2020, 3, Food Security Bill 2020, and 4, Oil Palm Industrial Park Establishment, etc. Bill 2020. Mr. President, we may wish to invite distinguished Senator Abdullahi Adamu and Chairman of the committee to move the motion for the Senate to receive the report. In his absence, Mr. President, his deputy, distinguished Senator
Distinguished Senator Bima Mohamed Nagy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, my highly respected, distinguished colleagues. My name is Senator B. Muhammad Nagy. I represent the people of Niger South from Niger State, and I happen to be the Vice Chairman of the Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development. I rise to move that I, on behalf of the Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development, lay and the Senate receives the following reports. 1, the motion on the urgent need to revive the palm oil industry. 2, the National Rice Development Council Bill 2020 SB 53, 3. Food Security Bill 2020 SB 11 and Oil Palm Industrial Park Establishment etc. Bill 2020 SB 171. I therefore move to...
Senator Chukwuka Utazi, you may second, please.
I second the motion as moved by the mover. So second.
That's a very clever way of seconding the motion. The Supreme Court is those in favor of the motion that we receive the reports of the Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. You may let the reports. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the seventh business of the day is the presentation of the report of the Committee on Land Transport on the Nigeria Railway Corporation Act N129 Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004 Repeal and Re-enactment Bill 2020. Mr. President, we may wish to invite distinguished Senator Buhari Abdul Fatai, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for this distinguished Senate to receive the report.
Distinguished Senator Buhari Abdul Fatai.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleague, Buhari Abdul Fatai. I move that the Senate do receive the report of the Committee on Land Transport on the Nigerian Railway Corporation Act 129, Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2020, SB 311.
Yes, Senator Adi Gyang.
Thank you, Mr. President. I remain Senator Adi Gyang of Plateau North, rising to second the motion ably moved by the Chairman, Senate Committee on Transportation, that the Senate do receive the report of the bill, Nigerian Railway Corporation Act, Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2020. I so second.
Thank you. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate receives the report of our Committee on Land Transport say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Chairman, may lead the report, please. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the first order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the report of the Committee on Communications on the screening of Professor Umar Garba Ambata for appointment as Executive Vice Chairman, Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Communication Commission, NCC. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Oluremi Shade Tinubu, who is the Chairman of the Committee, to move the motion for the presentation and consideration of the report. And in her absence, I hope her deputy is around. Oh yes, Bamidele, Opeyemi Bamidele will present the report.
Senator Michael Opeyemi Bamidele.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, I'm Michael Opeyemi Bamidele, representing Ekiti Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, I rise to move as a member of the Senate Committee on Communications and with the consent of the Chairman and the Vice Chairman as well as the distinguished Senate, to move that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on Communications of the nomination of Engineer Professor Umar Garba Dambata for appointment as Executive Vice Chairman, Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Communications Commission. Mr. President, I so move.
I'm looking for a seconder. Okay. Senator Ibrahim Yahya Olorogbe.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, Ibrahim Yahya Olorogbe, Kwara Central. I rise to second the motion assembly moved by my colleagues and a member of the committee. I'm also a member of the committee, that the Senate will receive and consider a report of the Committee on Communications of the nomination of Engineer Professor Umaru Garba Dambata for appointment as Executive Vice Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Nigeria Communications Commission. I so second, Mr. President.
Senator, where is Senator Lola Asharu? Because I can see you are in uniform today, you are Kwara, the Kwara contingent. Where is distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that we receive the report of our Committee on Communications, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Point of order, Leader.
Mr. President, I rise to move a motion for this Senate to suspend its Order 13 in order to allow us to extend our deliberations beyond the appointed time. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that the Senate do suspend Order 13 to enable us sit beyond 2 o'clock. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion by the Leader that the Senate suspends its Order 13 to enable it sit beyond 2 o'clock, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Payemi, lay the report. We are waiting for you to go and present the report.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I hereby rise to present the report of the Senate Committee on Communications on the screening for confirmation of nomination of Engineer Professor Umaru Garba Dambata for reappointment as Executive Vice Chairman, Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Communications Commission. Mr. President, on Tuesday, 14th July 2020, the Senate, at its plenary sitting, considered the request of the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for the confirmation of the nomination of Professor Dambata for reappointment as the Executive Vice Chairman, Chief Executive Officer of NCC, and referred same to the Committee on Communications for further legislative action. This is in consonance with the provisions of Section 8, subsection 1 of the Nigerian Communications Act 2003. And Mr. President, with your permission, I would like to abridge my report presentation
by saying the committee met and carried out the screening exercise, and of course the nominee responded most competently to the questions asked. And on page 5, from paragraph 5, I'm reporting on the findings of the committee. The nomination by Mr. President and Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is in consonance with the provisions of Section 8.1 and 8.4 of the Nigerian Communications Act 2003. The nominee met the statutory requirements stipulated in Sections 7.1 and 12.2 of the Nigerian Communications Act 2003, which validates his professional and educational competence, credibility, and sustainability for the appointment as the Executive Vice Chairman, Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Communications Commission. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, preliminary checks did not reveal any record of indictment against the nominee by any administrative or judicial panel or court of law for abuse of office or criminal offense. Given his modest performance in the first 5-year tenure, the nominee is deemed to deserve another final 5-year term to consolidate on the gains recorded so far. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the committee, after exhaustive deliberations and scrutiny of the curriculum vitae and other supporting documents of the nominee, and having been satisfied with his qualifications, experience, suitability, competence, and ability in communications regulatory matters, hereby recommend that the Senate do confirm the nomination of Engineer Professor Umaru Garba Dambata for the appointment as the Executive Vice Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Communications Commission. Mr. President, I so move.
Comments? Senator Barojibure.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Senator Barojibure. I represent Kano North. Mr. President, let me first of all commend the committee for a job well done. They went through the screening in a thorough manner, did all the relevant checks, and their finding clearly shows that this nominee is eminently qualified. Having done his first term, and he did well, and there's nothing that was seen that showed that there was anything that he did that wouldn't have allowed him to be so nominated by Mr. President for submission to this august Senate. He has the credibility, he has the integrity, the cognitive experience, and everything that is needed for one to have, he has all. And I therefore urge my colleagues, in view of the findings of the committee, to give the nod of the Senate so that he can be allowed to go for the second term in office as the EVC of the NCC. Mr. President, say something.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. The issue I want to raise has nothing to do with the credibility, qualification, or otherwise of the executive chairman. But the issue is based largely on procedural practice, Mr. President. If we turn into this report, we know that every standing committee is a reflection of the entire chamber, or a miniature legislature, every standing committee. But I see in the report, Mr. President, the report is not signed by the chairman, neither the vice chairman. And I'm just wondering whether is it possible for this Senate to sit without the presiding officer and the Deputy Senate President.
It's possible.
There is no report before us indicating that the committee had a resolution of a temporary or maybe a chairman pro tempore, as the case may be. It will have ordinarily, by standard practice, reflected in this report. Because I'm talking about setting the precedence, Mr. President, because this is a Senate. So I don't know if there's nothing wrong about that.
Minority Leader, you have raised an observation. Your observation is okay, but the explanation is the chairman is not available, the vice chairman is not available, and I was in communication with chairperson and the vice chairman, and they all said if the other members of the committee would support Senator Bamidele, he should, and I think there is no problem with that procedurally. Is that okay? Okay. Sorry? I'm not sure about that, but I know that he presided over the screening. Leader of the Senate.
I rise to move a motion for this distinguished Senate to resolve into the Committee of the Whole to consider this report. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I second that the Senate do resolve into a Committee of Whole in consideration of this report.
Distinguished colleague, those in favor of the motion that the Senate resolves into Committee of the Whole to consider the report, say aye. Those against, any, the ayes have it. The distinguished colleagues, we do approval now. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Professor Umar Garba Dambata for appointment as Executive Vice Chairman, Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC? Those in favor say aye. Those against, any, the ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, I rise to move the motion for this distinguished Senate to resume plenary to enable the chairman to report progress. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. Chairman, I second the motion that we revert to plenary to report progress.
Those in favor of the motion that the chair reports progress, say aye. Those against, any, the ayes have it. The Senate and the Committee of the Whole consider the report of the Committee on Communications on the screening of Mr. President's nominee for appointment as Executive Vice Chairman, Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Communications Commission NCC, and approve the nomination of Engineer Professor Umar Garba Dambata as Executive Vice Chairman, Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Communications Commission NCC. Is this a true reflection of what transpired at the Committee of the Whole? Thank you. Confirmation. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Professor Umar Garba Dambata for appointment as Executive Vice Chairman, Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Professor Umar Garba Dambata is hereby confirmed as Executive Vice Chairman, Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC. Congratulations to him, and we expect that he will double his efforts to take the NCC to the next level. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the second order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the report of the Committee on Banking, Insurance, and Other Financial Institutions on the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act, Cap B3, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, Amendment Bill 2020. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was referred to the committee on Tuesday, 19th May 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Obasani, chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the presentation and consideration of the report.
Senator Obasani.
Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, my name is Obasani. I represent Communal Central. I rise to move that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on Banking, Insurance and Other Financial Institutions on the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act, CAP B3 LFN 2004 Amendment Bill 2020, SB 178. I so move, Mr. President.
Senator Bima Mohamed Enagi.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Bima Mohamed Enagi. I'm the senator representing Naga South from Naga State. I rise to second the motion by my chairman, the Senate Committee on Banking, Insurance and Other Financial Institutions. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that we receive and consider the report of our Committee on Banking, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. You may lead the report. You will present the report. But Chairman, I think you need to abridge it. This your report is looking very intimidating.
Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I remain Senator Obasani, representing Communal Central. Mr. President, it will be recalled that the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, at its sitting on Thursday, 19 May 2020, read for the second time the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act, CAP B3 LFN 2004 Repeal and Enactment Bill 2020. I refer him to the Committee on Banking, Insurance and Other Financial Institutions for further legislative action. The bill is sponsored by my humble self, Senator Obasani, Communal Central, and Senator Betty Afiafi, Rivers West. Objectives of the bill. The bill seeks to repeal the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act 2004 and to reenact the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act 2020 and other matters connected therewith. The bill seeks to update the laws governing banks, financial institutions, and financial services, enhance efficiency in the process of obtaining or granting of banking licenses, impose stiffer penalties of regulatory breaches in the financial services industry, and also regulate the activities of financial technology companies, fintechs. Mr. President, with your permission, maybe I will jump the methodology and go straight to the...
You may do so.
Legislative summary. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the committee has painstakingly analyzed the presentations made at the public hearing as highlighted above and compared them with the provisions of the bill. Consequently, we hereby highlight the legislative summary, which gives a detailed clause-by-clause analysis of some key provisions of the bill in line with public views or reactions at the hearing. This summary, no doubt, provides the underlying reasoning for our observation, findings, and recommendations. Upon the conclusions and consideration of the contributions by the stakeholders and the general public, the committee came up with the final draft of BOFIA Bill 2020 with the updated recommendations as follows. 1. Section 19(1), single obligor limits for merchant banks revised to 50% of unimpaired shareholders' funds, while the single obligor limits for specialized banks and other financial institutions will be a percentage determined by the central bank governor from time to time. 2. Section 19(3), unsecured lending for directors of banks reviewed downwards from 3 million to 1 million without prior approval of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Section 31, CBN appointment of directors with supervisory roles, replacing appointment of a single director of banking supervision. Section 34, introduction of different rescue tools to enable the CBN rescue failing banks. Section 36, agencies that need to cooperate with the CBN in the event of banking sector crises such as the Ministry of Finance, Budget and Planning, NDIC, Corporate Affairs Commission, FRS, and other MDA, as may be determined by the CBN governor. Section 37, bail-in for failing banks, specialized banks, and other financial institutions. This avoids the use of public funds for banks' bailouts. Section 40, termination of rights of failing banks to enter new contracts without prior approval of the CBN governor. Section 40, asset separation rights, where toxic assets of a failing bank are separated from the performing assets. Section 45, powers of the President to prescribe trade unions was dropped from the bill due to the existing labor laws and also the nation's commitment to the International Labour Organization, ILO. Section 54, netting, which ensures finality of payments and settlement transaction of banks whose licenses have been revoked. Section 57, establishment of specialized banks and other financial institutions. This streamlines the licensing requirements of specialized banks and other financial institutions, including fintechs. Part 7, Section 63 to 73. Other regulatory powers of the CBN, which include risk-based requirement, consolidated supervision, competition, AML/CFT, corporate governance, cybersecurity, designating systematic important banks, etc. Chapter D, Sections 74 to 94. Establishment of Banking Sector Resolution Fund, which will be funded by the CBN, NDIC, banks as a fallback for the administration cost of a failing bank. Part X, Section 95 to 101, powers to impose and review penalties by the CBN governor based on the prevalence of infractions in the banking sector. This, however, limited to a maximum of 100 million. Chapter E, Section 102 to 129, creation of a special tribunal for the enforcement of recovery of eligible loans and also the speedy resolution of loan-related matters. 16, all other clauses are retained as in the proposed bill. Recommendation. The committee, after has taken evaluation and analysis of submission, observation, and the preponderance of views expressed in the support of the proposed legislation, hereby recommends as follows. That the Senate do approve the attachment recommendation of the Senate Committee on Banking, Insurance, and Other Financial Institutions on the bill for an act to repeal the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act, CAP B3, LFN 2004 and reenact the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act 2020. We so move, Mr. President.
Any comments? Senator Sandeono.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sandeono, Crossover Central. Mr. President, I just want to begin by commending the committee for what will pass for a very detailed and exhaustive work. Every act, every law, Mr. President, must be open to reforms from time to time, especially acts or laws that are very, very critical in governance in any country. And the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act is no exception. Mr. President, I have looked at the processes leading to this amendment, the public hearing having been done. I've looked at the participation of stakeholders, and you can see that over about 21 of key critical stakeholders participated in this process. I have also looked at some of the issues that have been dealt with, and I rise, therefore, without equivocation, to support this amendment to the Act. Thank you, Mr. President.
Leader of the Senate. Oh. Okay, Senator Betty, PFA.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Betty Apiafi. I represent Rivers West Senatorial District. I'm from Rivers State. Mr. President, as a co-sponsor of this bill, I'd like to commend the committee members and the chairman of the committee to have, for the amount of work that this committee has done to bring this bill to where we are today. This is one of the most important bills we'll pass in this ninth assembly, and it's a very critical bill, especially at this time when our nation is going through the pandemic like other nations. We have to have our financial sector very well put together to be able to get back the economy into proper position as we get out of the pandemic. Some of the very outstanding issues that have been dealt with in this bill is especially the issue of insider training and the high volume of outstanding loans we have in our banking sector. All of us are aware that AMCON today is almost like a disaster waiting to happen, and the reason is because AMCON is so burdened with the very high level of outstanding loans that are not being paid back because of the high level of default. And one of the decisions that was taken was to ensure there's a special tribunal to be set up to handle such outstanding bad debts, which will, of course, assist the banking industry to function properly and actually serve the nation better. Having said that, I'd like to appeal to our colleagues that please, I know this bill is very voluminous and it's taking a lot of work. It's a bit complex to understand, but trust us that the bill was done with a lot of professionalism went in to getting the bill ready, and we'll appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
Distinguished colleagues, we are not doing second reading of this bill. So is it okay we go to the committee of the whole to consider the report rather than continue to debate it? Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I rise to move a motion for this distinguished Senate to resolve in the committee of the whole to consider this report.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion that the Senate resolve into a committee of whole to consider this critical report.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate resolves committee of the whole to consider the report of our Committee on Banking close by close, say aye. Those against, any ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, this bill has 129 clauses, and because it's a very technical and sensitive bill, I would suggest that we go clause by clause, not merging, so that if anybody has any, I can only merge when we have either retained or deleted. Is that okay? So we should just be patient. We start from page 1, clause 1. Clause 1, we are looking at the fourth column, committee's recommendation. So that's where we'll be reading. Clause 1, those in favor that clause 1 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Clause 2. Clause 2, those in favor that clause 2 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Clause 3. Clause 3, those in favor that clause 3 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Clause 4. Clause 4, those in favor that clause 4 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Clause 5. Those in favor that clause 5 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Clause 6. Clause 6 on page 10. Those in favor that clause 6 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Clause 7 on page 12. Clause 7. Those in favor that clause 7 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Clause 8 on page 15. Clause 8, those in favor that clause 8 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Clause 9 on page 17. Those in favor that clause 9 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Clause 10 on page 17 again. Those in favor that clause 10 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Clause 11 on page 18. Those in favor that clause 11 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Clause 12. Clause 12. Those in favor that clause 12 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Clause 13 on page 22. Clause 13. Those in favor that clause 13 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Clause 14 on page 24. Those in favor that clause 14 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 15 on page 27. Clause 15. Those in favor that clause 15 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 16, next page. Clause 16. Those in favor that clause 16 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 17 on page 30. Clause 17. Those in favor of clause 17 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 18 on page 35. Yeah, Senator Chukwuka Utazi. Clause 18. Okay. 17 too. Yeah.
Thank you. If you look at clause 2, if you look at 17 there, 2, any manager or officer who contravenes or fails to comply with any of the provisions of section 1 of this section, and the section 1 is talking about manager or officer, talking shall in any manner whatsoever, whether direct or indirect, have personal interest in any advance, loan, or credit facility. And if the manager or officer has any such personal interest, such manager or officer shall declare the nature of such interest to the bank. And in the 2, we are saying that the offense, if the person commits offense, if the person does not disclose and is found out, 3 years, and then you say 5 million. Mr. Chairman, 5 million naira is for me, is too small. You know, I think because somebody can, you haven't said the type of loan, whether it's going to be 100 million, or 1 billion, or 2, or any amount, and you now come and just say 5 million. So what I'm saying, Mr. President, that the fine should be, they should be 15 million. 15 million. Or both.
I think it's any director who contravenes the provision of section 3609 of this section is guilty of an offense and liable on conviction to a fine of not less than 5 million. It could be 20 million, 30 million, or 100 million. But we said it also that it shouldn't be more than 100 million, but in one of the sections. But it could be up to even 100 million. So in subsequent sections, it's not less than. It's not less than. Not less than. Not less than.
Page 35, clause 18. Clause 18. Those in favor that clause 18 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 19, page 37. Clause 19. Clause 19. Those in favor that clause 19 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 20 is on page 46. Clause 20 is on page 46. 46. Clause 20. Those in favor that clause 20 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 21. Those in favor that clause 21 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 22 on page 49. Clause 22. Those in favor that clause 22 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 23 on page 51. Those in favor that clause 23 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 24 on page 52. Those in favor that clause 24 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 25 on page 54. Those in favor that clause 25 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 26, 25.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, sir, that section, I think that's error of type because it said, notwithstanding anything in section, error reference source not found. Which section is he referring to? Maybe the chairman will clarify. Huh? He didn't refer specifically. Check which section is he referring to, Mr. Chairman. That's
Chairman, please. Can you clarify section, clause 25, page 54, publication of consolidated statements? Or maybe we'll proceed to the next so that you sort this one out. We come back to it instead of stagnating. Yes, Senator Surajidin Ajibola.
I think it is in the secretariat matter that they need to go back because it's not only relating to that particular section, it's also on page 51, page 49, and some other earlier pages. So I think after looking at it, the secretariat will just have to clean it up. It is in trying to use the computer for cross-referencing that those things are come up. So I think they can clean it up after just cross-reference it to the appropriate section.
Chairman, you have something to say on this? All right.
Let me read it. There's no mistake. Notwithstanding anything in section of this act. That's what I'm talking about. Where is it? Is it I should be taking it's not a problem. It's that.
Secretariat, please take note. Yeah, you do the same. I think it's the same thing. Okay, take note, please, Secretariat. So we are on 26. Yeah, DSP.
Can somebody read it to give us the correct provision, please? 25. No, can you read it to give us the correct provision? Yes.
Chairman. Senator Betty Apiafi.
It reads, notwithstanding anything in this section, the bank may prepare and publish consolidated statements. Prepare and publish consolidated statements aggregating the statements furnished under section 25 of this bill for each category of bank. 25. Sorry, not 25. I'll get the section. But definitely that's what it reads for this category of bank. Notwithstanding anything in this section of this act, the bank may prepare and publish consolidated statements aggregating the statements furnished under this section of this act for each category of banks. That's actually what it reads. Page 54.
Chairman, because we want to hear from you, this is your committee's job. I ask Senator Betty Apiafi to speak because she is a co-sponsor. What is the final thing you want to tell us about this section 20?
Mr. President, it's only a typographic error, but I think it's just an error here. It's not a major. So, Mr. President, that is what is, notwithstanding anything in section of this act, in section of this act, there's nothing there, Mr. President. The bank may prepare and publish consolidated statement aggregating the statement furnished under this section.
Distinguished colleagues, please, I just want people who are members of this committee to guide us, not, you are a member? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished colleagues, let's start with the proposed amendment the committee is working on was on section 25. And from there, we go to the proposed amendment and the committee recommendation. So the section they are referring to is section 25. It's no other section. Of this section is section 25. Because what we are working on is section 25 itself. It's not section 24, nor section 23. So, it will read thus, notwithstanding anything in this section of this act, the bank may prepare, publish consolidated statement, aggregating the statement furnished under section 25 of this act for each category of banks. If we take another section, we are trying to create something different entirely.
Senator Abiola, you cannot say under aggregating the statements furnished under section 25, maybe under this section. Okay, Utazi.
Mr. Chairman, if you look at the first section of this in publication of considered statements, you go to the middle presentation here. This is the first one, and that of 25 we are put together. So if you look at the first one and the section 1 here, which was the previous one, now in the one they amended, they joined 25 in one listen. And that's why you can see the first, the 26 one, the other side, you come to the middle, you see that reference here, and that of 25 is now 2. So it's covered. It's the two of them. If you read the first one, okay, let me start from this one. The left-hand side is publication of consideration. This is the statement and information submitted by each bank under section 25 of this file shall be regarded as confidential, provided, and then you come down. They came here now and rephrase it and said the statement and information submitted by each bank under section 25 shall be regarded as confidential, provided that such bank shall furnish any such statement or information to any agency of government as required by law. 2, notwithstanding, that's the where the 25 comes now, I say, notwithstanding anything in this section, the bank may prepare and publish consolidated statements aggregating the statements furnished under section 25 of this bill for each category of banks. So you now use one stone to kill two birds. That's what they did here. They brought them here, and I think it's covered. It's covered. Huh? Look, that one, look at it, it is done. Don't go and bring any confusion again.
Distinguished colleagues, please, if we cannot get any clarification and the correct wording, can we go to the next so that the committee chairman should sort this one out? What we need is not information. What we need is the correct wording. Okay, Senator Aluragbe.
Chairman, sir, I think I have gone through. If you go by section 24, the new section 24, which was previous 25, speaks about return by banks. Now, what the new section 25 is saying is that it is referring to the return, which is, but that section, the first section is section 24. That is, which will be the new section 24 now. While the last one, the last where they wrote the error will be section, what you read is notwithstanding anything in section 24. Section 24 is talking about return by banks. The whole of section 24 is also about submitting report by banks to CBN. So section 25 is talking about consolidation. So what is error here is that the Secretariat did not quote the new reference because there's a new arrangement in the recommendation. So that area of error reference source not found should be section 24, which is the previous section. And the last one will be under this section, which is the current 25. That is the correct answer. 24 is the first one, the last one is 25. That's my submission.
Distinguished colleagues, I think we have to make progress because we can't be, Senator Bamidele, this will be the last intervention. If we can't get it right, we leave it with the committee. Yes, and then we proceed to the next.
Mr. Chairman, I'm speaking as a member of the committee in consultation with the chairman of the committee. And I think our best bet here is that we have to play very safe. Except the Secretariat and the drafters have anything superior to it, this section should read, notwithstanding anything in this act, notwithstanding anything in this act, because we cannot limit this. Well, Mr. Chairman, that would be my suggestion, that subject to the Secretary coming up with something superior. That's really what I feel. Anything in this act.
Distinguished colleagues, I would suggest that we make progress. Meanwhile, the chairman and his team should sort this thing out before we finish this thing. So, chairman, I don't know where you will get your information from, but you should arrive at something so that we come back to it. But meanwhile, we should make progress. Otherwise, we spend the whole day here without finishing this. So we go to clause 26. Clause 26. Sorry? Let's point it out. Okay, what is supposed to be the correct this thing? For the purpose of subsection 4 of this section, an approved auditor shall be an auditor approved for the purpose of section. I think it's cross-referencing, and something is in the system did not recognize what they were trying to say. So I think we should take note of subsection 5. Eh? I think in clause 27.2, there is that. Well, distinguished colleagues, as much as we would like to pass this bill, I think it's safer they go and work this, because this is a very sensitive law we are trying to pass. We shouldn't leave anything to guessing and. No, but the thing is, they have appeared in other places. But we need to understand what these things mean. 2 minutes. Yeah, I think, you see, ordinarily we would have just gone on a high speed, but I say we should go one after another, because this is sensitive. And you see, you can see the the kind of thing that we have been able to achieve. So I think we should take it tomorrow. We all agree this is a very, very important bill, but we need to get it right because it is so important and technical. So, Leader of the Senate. We have stopped on clause 25. So tomorrow we'll start from clause 25, by the grace of God, yes.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I rise to move the motion that this distinguished Senate suspend consideration of this bill until the next legislative day.
Minority.
Mr. Chairman, I second the motion that we step down class by class consideration till another legislative day. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate resolves to committee to return to plenary for the charter report progress, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, the Senate and the Committee of the Whole consider the report of the Committee on Banking, Insurance and Other Financial Institutions on the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act, B 3-11 2004, Amendment Bill 2020, and approved as follows. Clauses 1 to 25 as recommended. Further consideration of the bill deferred to the next legislative day, that is tomorrow, by the grace of God. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
The third order of the day is the consideration of the report of the Committee on Army on the Nigerian Army University View Establishment, etc. Bill 2020. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, will recall that the report of the committee was laid on Wednesday, 15th July 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Muhammad Ali Indume Chairman of the Committee on the Army to move the motion for the consideration of the report.
Senator Mohammed Ali Ndume.
And my distinguished colleagues, may I move that this Senate do consider the report of the Committee on the Army on a bill for an act to establish the Nigerian Army University Bill and to make comprehensive provisions for management and administration and for related matters, establishment etc. Bill SB 332/2020, which was read the second time. I so move.
Senator Geshambasi, please second consideration.
Thank you, Mr. President. Geshambasi, Cross River South. I rise to second the motion for consideration of the report by Senator Ali Ndume. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that we consider the report of the Committee on Army, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Present your report.
Thank you, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues. The report of the Senate Committee on Nigerian Army on a bill for an act to establish the Nigerian Army University Bill and to make comprehensive provisions for management and administration and for related matters. My distinguished colleagues, the Senate at its sitting on Tuesday, 3rd March 2020, read the bill for an act, for this act, and to make comprehensive recommendations for the related and related matters was referred to our Committee on Army for further legislative action. The list of members is there. We go to the Secretariat. The objective is also with you there. Then the methodology is the normal methodology used. I would crave your indulgence, Mr. President, to allow me to go straight to the committee's recommendation. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, we have subjected both the oral and written submissions of relevant stakeholders to critical analysis and exhaustive deliberations, taking into consideration areas that are in conflict with other extant laws, those that have security implications, and those that are ambiguous. The committee amended 10 clauses, redrafted 20 clauses, renumbered 4, and deleted 4 also, and amended 78 sub-clauses of the bill that are contentious in one way or the other. We therefore recommend that the Senate do consider and pass the bill as amended. In conclusion, Mr. President, I want, on behalf of the committee, to thank the members, distinguished colleagues, and particularly the Senate President for the opportunity given to us to serve in this capacity. Thank you.
Any comments? Leader of the Senate, Committee of the Whole.
Mr. President, I rise to remove the motion for the distinguished colleagues to resolve it to the Committee of the Whole to consider this report. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I second the motion as moved.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate resolves into Committee of the Whole to consider the report of the Committee on Army, clause by clause, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, this is not meant to be a controversial or too technical or too sensitive, I think. And our committee has done a good job for us, so I think we can afford to go faster than the other one. I imagine that's the consensus. We'll make a speed in army way. Well, we start with clause 1. Clause 1 on page 2. We start from page 2. Those in favor that clause 1 stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 2 to 4. Clause 2 to 4. Yes, Senator Aburajurin.
Page 3. The university shall be supervised by the Federal Ministry of Education and shall through the National University Commission be responsible, blah, blah, blah. There's no mention of the military component in terms of those who are to supervise the university. Whereas on page 2, that is clause 1.3, it is said here that the university shall be a training institution for the development of middle and high-level manpower in the areas of technological empowerment for civilians, appreciation for military policy. So how can you do that without military involvement in the supervision of the university? So I think the military should also be involved to be part of the supervisors of the university.
Chairman, is that okay or you have an explanation?
In as much as is referred to as Army University, as the NUC said, the NUC and Ministry of Education, of course in conjunction with the military, is responsible for supervision. This bill is intended to make the university autonomous. And if you go to other sections, the involvement of the Nigerian Army and their role is specific and specifically indicated there. But if you say you are giving the whole control of the Nigerian Army, its supervision and administration to the Nigerian Army, that makes it exclusively a Nigerian Army, which is supposed to be, a joint open for civilians also. We have discussed this matter exhaustively with the NUC and the Nigerian Army, and they are comfortable with this, the clause as, yes. No, regular university, but with military concentration. Regular university, of course, civilians can go in, soldiers can go on also, but it is, right now, that is what we are trying to get over, because right now the university is under the military. And the NUC, if it is supposed to be an accredited university, then the NUC and the Army are supposed to be working jointly, but not handing over the university to the Army control entirely. Army and civilian.
Let me tell you from my little experience as someone from the university, this is supposed to be an entirely NUC affair, because when they will do accreditation, the soldiers or the army can only try to meet the standard they will set. So it's for them to really look after the courses there and everything. You don't need the military or the army to superintend there. It's accreditation, and there are specific things that they will say they want to see in that institution. Even though it's an army institution, but they are in charge of everything. They are in charge of science and technology and agriculture and everything. So I think the way it is, I think is in order. But you were chairman once, chairman of TED Fund and tertiary institutions. But I think this is the normal practice. Are we okay? Are you convinced? Okay, clauses 2 to 4, leader. Okay, leader. Which clause?
On page 4. That functions of the university. Page 4. Functions of the university. You have it? Yes, what I'm saying, sir, is that approving all academic programs of the university, I agree. Ensure compliance of compliance and quality, okay. But provide funds for academic research programs. I think it's for teaching and research programs. Okay. Because teaching, academic programs involve both research and teaching. So it's teaching and research programs, not just academic research programs. For teaching and research programs. In fact, I would have even...
So, Chairman, are you okay with that? Okay, we take the correction. We delete academic and say teaching and the research programs. Okay, so clauses 2 to 4. 2 to 4. Those in favor that clauses 2, 3, and 4 stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have. Clause 5 to 10. Clause 5 to 10. Clause 5 to 10. Clause 5 is on page 8 and 10 is on page 21. Those in favor that clauses 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 stand part of the bill say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Clauses 11 to 20. 11 to 20. (11 to 20). (11 to 20). Those in favor that clauses 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20 stand part of the bill say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. 21 to 30. (21 to 30). That's page 47 to 58. 47 to 58, clauses 21 to 30. Those in favor that clauses 21 to 30 stand part of the bill say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. 31 to 40. I'm not sure. 31 to 39. One to 39. Those in favor that clauses 31 to 39 stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. The explanatory memorandum. Those in favor that this explanatory memorandum stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The short title. Those in favor that the short title of the bill stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The long title on page 1. Those in favor that the long title stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
President, I move that this distinguished Senate refer to plenary for the chair to report progress. I so move.
I've gone through the bills, Mr. President. I didn't see anywhere a mention is made of the visitor to the university, even in the explanatory note. The visitor. Like every university have a visitor. Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, sorry for taking you back, but I think it's appropriate to state this here. It is said that the university shall be funded by the Federal Ministry of Education. I think it's a unique university, particularly being situated at an area where it has been ravaged by the Boko Haram insurgency. Just like the Nigerian Maritime University in Horokonko, it's also being funded by Ministry of Education, but still you have some funding coming from the maritime sector. So I think we should include the Nigerian Army here, no matter how small. Let them also help in funding the university. The specialized university, it's a unique university. They need that help. So I'm suggesting that it should be, the university shall be funded by the Federal Ministry of Education as well as Nigerian Army and supervised by the Federal Ministry of Education, as stated here. No, this is what is stated here. We are only including. The inclusion is that the Nigerian Army should also help in funding it. That's just the difference.
Mr. Chairman.
Maritime, okay.
Mr. Chairman, at this point, I think I will not go along with my brother on this issue. He referred to the maritime sector. This is a sector of the economy. They have an independent revenue that they generate. Nigerian Army doesn't have any revenue. Only allocation coming from the federal government to Nigerian Army that is this saying that having released funding to Ministry of Education to fund this university, and out of what is given to the Nigerian Army should also go to this school. We should be clear about it. For those who share the school of thought that the Nigerian maritime sector should support the maritime university, they are fully aware that the maritime sector have an independent revenue that they can use to support that particular university. So we have to get it clear here. When we are asking the Nigerian Army to come on board in funding each university, we must be specific to that source of fund that will be used to do so. I so submit.
Mohammed Sani Musa, Niger East. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I will subscribe to Senator Diola Olayimeko that section should be left as it is, because Nigerian Defense Academy is there as a specialized institution for the military. And what they are trying to get from University of View, a military university view, is for the fact that personnel in the army can also go there to earn their degrees. So I think leaving it the way it is better, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think, I'm coming, Chairman. I think, even though I had to abandon Barrow, you are looking on orphan now, but you see, the truth about this thing is you cannot ask the Nigerian army to fund because they have no fund except what is given to them. So that will be asking them to give what they don't have. I think the whole idea of creating that university is not for military operations or those who will be in charge, because you have Jaji, you have NDA, and you have NDC, is it NDC, Nigeria Defense? So probably they want intellectual input from that university. So I don't know how you will ask the Nigerian army to contribute money to fund this thing. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President and Chairman. I really want to appreciate the concerns shown by my distinguished colleagues in not the issue of this Nigerian army, but we have just, we took a motion on this issue of security. I think our institutions, whether Army, Navy, Air Force, actually one of the challenges that we have now, as you see, is the training and equipment. And training is a very critical part. Now, the Nigerian Army as an institution, NDA and other institutions, I think is something that if not now or later, we should look into their proper funding. And since the matter was raised by the chairman appropriation, I think he should start from there. So we will expect that he will do something. This budget that is before him is coming before him.
Now I can see you are even worse than an orphan. So I think this will be the leader of the Senate. Okay. Please second minority.
Mr. Chairman, I second the motion that the Senate revert to plenary to consider this.
The report. Those in favor of the motion that the Senate reverts to plenary for the chart report progress, say aye. Those against, any, the ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, the Senate and the Committee of the Whole considered the report of the Committee on Army on the Nigerian Army University BU Establishment, etc. Bill 2020 and approved as follows. Clauses 1 to 3 as recommended, 4 as amended, 5 to 20 as recommended, 21 to 39 as recommended. Explanatory memorandum as recommended, short title as recommended, long title as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, I rise to move a motion for this bill to be read the third time. So move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion, moved by the leader that the bill be now read the third time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to establish the Nigerian Army University BU to make comprehensive provision for its due management and administration and for related matters, 2020, third reading.
A bill for an act to establish the Nigerian Army University BU to make comprehensive provisions for its due management and administration and for related matters, 2020, third reading taken and passed. Congratulations. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fourth order of the day is the consideration of the report of the Committee on Education, Basic and Secondary, on the need to integrate Almajiri education into modern system of education in Nigeria. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Alhaji Ibrahim Gaidam, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the Senate to consider the report. In his absence, Mr. President, I recommend that we invite distinguished Senator Akon Eyakayi, who is the deputy chairman of that committee, to represent the chairman of the committee in the presentation of the report. I so move.
Distinguished Senator Eyakayi.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, I am Senator Kodeyayi, Akwa Ibom South Senatorial District. Mr. President, you will recall that this report was laid in this hallowed chamber on the 14th of July, and so I move that Senate do consider the report of the Committee on Education, Basic and Secondary on the need to integrate Almajiri education into modern system of education in Nigeria. I so move.
Yeah, Senator Kola Balogun.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Kola Balogun, Oyo South Central District. I rise to second the motion that the report on the need to integrate Almajiri education into modern system of education in Nigeria be considered and approved. I so second, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that we consider the report of our Committee on Basic and Secondary Education, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. You present your report.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues.
Give us an abridged copy and presentation.
(2020) deliberated on a motion sponsored by Senator Mohammed Alario, Kebbi Central, on the need to integrate the Almajiri education into the modern system of education in Nigeria, and mandated its Committee on Education, Basic and Secondary, to come up with ways and means to collaborate with the state governments to get the currently over 14 million out-of-school children enrolled in the basic and secondary education program and report back to the Senate. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the Almajiri system of education was initially established as an organization and comprehensive system of education for learning Islamic principles, values, through jurisprudence, theology, and culture. The failure of this system over the years resulted to the unfortunate subjection of the pupils under it to street begging, crime, violence, and therefore poses social, economic, and security challenges. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the committee met and the following observations and findings as recorded was agreed upon. The committee observed and found the following in the course of its interaction with the Federal Ministry of Education and UBEC. 1. Education is contained in the concurrent legislative list and basic and secondary education, majorly within the purview of the state government. It was observed that indeed there are Almajiris who are predominant in the north, constitute the larger number of out-of-school children roaming the streets, begging for alms and food in Nigeria, and therefore are covered by the intervention policy and programs of the federal government through the UBEC Act 2004. It was observed that the implementation of the UB Act 2004 requires maximum collaboration with the state governments and indeed the domestication of the act through the state legislators. It was also observed that the joint submission by Federal Ministry of Education and the Universal Basic Commission emphasized that the out-of-school children phenomenon is the single most serious problem of education in Nigeria and requires valid data bank of actual out-of-school children for adequate planning and policy implementation, coordinated strategies, strong partnership, and collaboration with both local and international agencies. It was also observed that Nigeria has obtained $611 million from the World Bank to finance this program. 6, the program appraisal document of BESDA mandated the Federal Ministry of Education to formulate and coordinate policy for the program and the hiring of the independent verification agents who will verify the achievements made by the states before rewards or funds are disbursed. Number 7, observation. The committee observed that optimal operation and implementation of the BESDA program as being anchored and implemented by UBEC in collaboration with Federal Ministry of Education and participation of key education agencies require improved federal, state, and local level communication, coordination, and collaboration to succeed. It was further observed that the committee, however, discovered that the states were being engaged to participate in the BESDA program through advocacy and sensitization, provision of technical assistance, technical meetings to ensure that delivery plans are in line with the aims and objectives of the program. The committee also observed that 17 focus states have adopted some enrollment strategies by the Federal Ministry of Education and UBEC for the OSC, such as integration of the informal school into the formal system and then the enrollment drive. The recommendation 6.0, the committee recommends that 1, the Senate should urge the National Council of States through the President, Commander-in-Chief to compel all states to prioritize and dedicate a certain percentage of their resources to the cost and funding of the out-of-school children and basic and secondary education. Comply promptly with the conditions required to access and utilize the funds. On the process and implementation of the program to ensure continuity and safety of the infrastructures and facilities deployed to the states. Recommendation 2, UBEC should extend the BESDA implementation strategies to other states not included in the focus states in order to generate accurate data of the out-of-school children in those states. 3, UBEC should deploy more robust and dynamic ways of monitoring the program and ensure strict compliance for assessing and utilizing the funds and supervision of the federal government's monetary and infrastructural interventions to states. Fourth, the Federal Ministry of Education should intensify its sensitization and advocacy programs and engagement of all stakeholders, particularly the traditional and religious scholars, on the plight of the Almajiris amongst other out-of-school children, and the need to enroll them into the universal system. Conclusion. The issue of out-of-school children represents major national concern and therefore requires sincere and serious commitment and collaboration amongst federal, state, and local governments, including traditional, religious, and community leaders, parents, and other interested stakeholders. Achievement of remarkable success in curbing this issue depends largely on accurate data of the out-of-school children, adequate funding, recruitment and training of teachers, and provision of sufficient infrastructure. The committee therefore invites the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to consider and approve the recommendations in 6.0 above. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Any comments? We'll go to the recommendations. Recommendation 1, Senate should urge the National Council of States through the President Commander-in-Chief to compel all states to prioritize and dedicate a certain percentage of their resources to the cost and funding of out-of-school children and basic and secondary education. Comply promptly with the conditions required to access and utilize the funds, own the process and implementation of the program to ensure continuity and safety of the infrastructures and facilities deployed to the states. Those in favor of this recommendation, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. You raise your hand. Okay, amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, going by the functions and powers of the Council of State as provided for in the Constitution, the Council of State cannot compel, or rather urge or advise. So the word compel has no place in the functions of the Council of State. It's purely advisory to the state. Thank you.
Why is the word compel? Okay. To urge all states, is it? Advice. So I'll put the question again. Those in favor of recommendation 1 as amended, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 2, UBES should extend the BESDA implementation strategies to other states not included in the focus states in order to generate accurate data of the out-of-school children in those states. Those in favor of recommendation 2, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 3, UBEC should deploy more robust and dynamic ways of monitoring the program and ensure strict compliance for accessing and utilizing the funds and supervision of the federal government's monetary and infrastructural interventions to the states. Those in favor of recommendation 3 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. And recommendation 4, the Federal Ministry of Education should intensify its sensitization and advocacy programs and engagement of all stakeholders, particularly the traditional and religious scholars, on the plight of Almajiris amongst other out-of-school children and the need to enroll them into the universal basic education system. Those in favor of this recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fifth order of the day. Well, after this.
Distinguished colleagues, let me appeal to all of us that we have only 2 more reports to go. One is a very simple one from the Establishment and Public Service. Is confirmation. That one doesn't take time. And the last one will be a report of the Committee on Health, and then we close.
It's a presentation and consideration of the report of the Committee on Establishment and Public Service Matters on the screening of Ida Hadborn Williams Omorogi for appointment as Commissioner representing Edo, Ekiti, and Ondo States in the Federal Civil Service Commission. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Ibrahim Shokarau, Chairman of the Committee, to move the motion for the presentation and consideration of the report.
Distinguished Senator Ibrahim Shokarau.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished ladies and noble colleagues. Mr. President, I stand to move
Appropriation and Finance. You are not giving security money and you are disturbing Senator Gobir. Second, Senator San Musa. You should second the
Mr. President, my name is Mohammed Sani Musa, representing NHIS Senatorial District. I stand to second the motion as moved by the mover. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that we receive and consider the report of our Committee on Establishment and Public Service, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. You can lay your report. You will present your report now.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, you recall that the Senate at its plenary session on Tuesday, the 7th of July 2020, considered the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, for the confirmation of a nomination for appointment as Commissioner for the Federal Civil Service Commission, and referred same to our committee. Mr. President, the committee, after subjecting the nominee to rigorous screening exercise, observed as follows. The nominee satisfied the requirements of Section 156 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, and Orders 119 and 121 of the Senate Standing Orders 2015 as amended. That is antecedent as a legal luminary and a seasoned administrator, both in the public and private sectors, made him very qualified to be appointed as Commissioner of the Federal Civil Service Commission, and that there is no petition against his nomination for appointment as a Commissioner in the Federal Civil Service Commission. Consequently, Mr. President, the Committee on Establishment and Public Service, having screened the nominee, carefully scrutinized his credentials, and being satisfied with his performance, qualification, and competence, hereby recommends that the Senate do confirm the nomination of Barrister Williams Henry as a Commissioner for the Federal Civil Service Commission. I so submit, Mr. President.
Any comments? Leader of the Senate, Committee of the Whole.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I move that this Senate do resolve in the Committee of the Whole to consider this report.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I second that the Senate resolve to the Committee of the Whole to consider.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate resolves into Committee of the Whole to consider the report of our Committee on Establishment and Public Service, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Approval. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Idabong Williams Omerege for appointment as a Commissioner representing Edo, Ekiti, and Ondo states in the Federal Civil Service Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I move that the Senate resumes plenary for the chair to report progress. I so move.
Mr. Chairman, I so second as moved.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate reverse to plenary for the chair to report progress, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Confirmation. just contrive something. The Senate in the Committee of the Whole considered the report of our Committee on Establishment and Public Service on the screening of Mr. President nominee for appointment as a commissioner representing Edo, Ekiti, and Ondo states in the Federal Civil Service Commission, and approved the nomination of Idarbon Williams Omerige as a commissioner representing Edo, Ekiti, and Ondo states in the Federal Civil Service. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Confirmation. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Idarbon Williams Omerige for appointment as a commissioner representing Edo, Ekiti, and Ondo states in the Federal Civil Service Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Idarbon Williams Omerige is hereby confirmed as a commissioner representing Edo, Ekiti, and Ondo states in the Federal Civil Service Commission. Congratulations. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the sixth order of the day is the consideration of the report of the Committee on Health on the National Health Insurance Scheme Act, Cap N42, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2020. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, will recall that the report of the committee was laid on Tuesday, 14th July 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Ibrahim Yahya Oloregbe, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the consideration of the report.
Senator Ibrahim Yahya Oloregbe.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Ibrahim Yahya Oloregbe, Kwara Central. I rise to move that the Senate do consider the report of the Committee on Health on the National Health Insurance Scheme, Cap N42, Law of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2020. I so move, Mr. President.
Senator Solomon Adiola Olamilekon, you can second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to second the motion as moved. I so second.
Those in favor of the motion that we consider the report of the Committee on Health, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Oloregbe.
Thank you, Mr. President. The bill for an act to repeal National Health Insurance Scheme Act and to enact the National Health Insurance Authority Bill 2020 was presented before the Senate on 17th December.
Please, you may paraphrase it.
The committee undertook public hearing on the bill, and the public hearing was well attended by stakeholders, including civil society and all other members of the public. The committee thereafter considered the report in detail, and the summary as provided in this report are the key consideration of the committee. Based on that, the committee observed, as listed on page 10 to 11, the items as contained there. Therefore, the committee recommended as follows. The Committee on Health, to which was referred a bill for an act to repeal the National Health Insurance Act, Cap N42, and to enact the National Health Insurance Authority Bill, having considered same report and accordingly recommend that the Senate will consider and pass the bill for an act to repeal the National Health Insurance Act, Cap N42, LFN 2004, and to enact the National Health Insurance Authority Bill 2020. I so move on behalf of the committee, Mr. President.
Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, Mr. President, I rise to move the motion for this distinguished Senate to resolve the Committee of the Whole to consider the report.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion as moved.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate resolves into Committee of the Whole to consider the report of our Committee on Health, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, this is not a controversial bill, so we will go on a speed that wouldn't harm. Clause 1 is on page 1. Clause 1 Clause 1 to 3. Clause 1 to 3. Those in favor that clauses 1 to 3 remain part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. 4 to 10. Four is on page 8, 10 is on page 15. All retain. Those in favor that clauses 4 to 10 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. 11 to 20. Is on page 15, page 16, 20 on page 27. Those in favor that clauses 16 to 27 stand part of the bill, say aye. No, clauses 16 to 20. No, sorry. Clauses 11 to 20 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. 21 to 30. Even before I put the question. Those in favor that clauses 21 to 30 remain part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. 31 to 40. 31 to 40. 31 to 40. 31 on page 39, 40 on page 48. Those in favor that clauses 31 to 40 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. 41 to 50. 41 to 50. Those in favor that clauses 41 to 50 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60. Those in favor that clauses 51 to 60 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. 61, 61 to 70. Those in favor that Clauses 61 to 70 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. 70 to 79. 70 to 79. Those in favor that clauses 70 to 79 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Explanatory memorandum. Those in favor that the explanatory memorandum stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Short title. Those in favor that the short title stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The long title. Those in favor that the long title stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I rise to move a motion to revert to plenary for the chair to report progress. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. Chairman, I rise to second the motion as moved.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the chair reports progress, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. So, colleagues, the Senate in the Committee of the Whole considered the report of the Committee on Health on the National Health Insurance Scheme Act, CAP N42 LFN 2004? Sorry? Okay, repeal and enactment bill 2020 and approved as follows. Clauses 1 to 40 as recommended, 41 to 60 as recommended, 61 to 79 as recommended. Explanatory memorandum as recommended. Short title as recommended. Long title as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Leader of the Senate.
I rise to move the motion for this bill to be read the third time.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion as moved.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the bill be now read the third time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to repeal the National Health Insurance Scheme Act, CAF 42 LFN 2004, and to enact the National Health Insurance Commission Bill 2020, third reading.
A bill for an act to repeal the National Health Insurance Scheme Act, CAP N42 LFN 2004, and to enact the National Health Insurance Commission Bill 2020, third reading taken, and the bill is passed. Congratulations. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I rise to move a motion for this Senate to step down all other items on today's agenda to another legislative day. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I second the motion that the remaining items be stepped down for another legislative day. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that we stand down the consideration of the remaining items on the order paper till another legislative day, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate is hereby adjourned till tomorrow, Wednesday, the 22nd of July, 2020 at 10 a.m. prompt.